Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. And welcome to the 120th OGC member meeting, today hosted uh, concurrently with the Singapore Geospatial Festival. I'd like to very much thank my colleagues in Singapore for their excellent support so far in helping us pull off this great joint meeting. It's been a really wonderful experience. A special call out to Vanessa and Husan for their incredible efforts in getting us together. My name is Scott Simmons. I am the chair of the meeting this week. I'm also the chief standards officer in the OGC, and my job is really to help move us all along through the following meeting sessions all week long. Today, we have a really great opening session to get you started. And so without further ado, let me just get us going here. Our agenda today is to have a keynote from Mr. Colin Lowe with the Singapore Land Authority. We're then going to sign a memorandum of understanding between GeoWorks and the OGC, and there'll be a little bit more details on what GeoWorks is for Mr. Lowe. A fireside chat with Simona Tocelli and Dr. Nadine Alame from OGC. Trevor will bring us along with our new members. I'll give just a little bit of business. Oh, Nadine's going to do a CEO update actually after the chat. Sorry about that. And finally, some innovation program activities and a preview from the CTIO, Dr. Ingo Simonis. But first, before we jump into the full content of the meeting, I know a lot of you online today are here as part of the Singapore Geospatial Festival, and you may not know a lot about OGC. So let me just take a couple of minutes to introduce you to the Open Geospatial Consortium, tell you what we do, and sort of level set everyone for the remainder of the week. As you know, as participants in the Geospatial Festival, you're also welcome to join portions of the OGC member meeting that's going on this entire week. And I'll give a preview a little bit later today during this session of what you might expect in those topics. So OGC is a membership organization of more than 540 members from around the world focused on all things location. In particular, our focus is making location fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We work with all types of geospatial data, location data, and develop standards, best practices, and engineering guidance. If you look at the way we operate, again, a number of members from government, industry, research, and universities. We are focused, again, on this single laser-focused mission on making location information fair. And we do this through a process of innovation, standardization, and recycling all of these ideas and content to ensure that our standards are the most effective they can be, that the research we're applying against those standards ensures that they meet the needs of the industry and the community, and then reassess continuously. We develop a number of open standards that you've probably heard of, best practices to help tell you how to use those standards and other guidance, and execute proofs of concept to prove out that all these things actually work. If you look at our membership, again, approximately 545 members now, split amongst a number of different levels, from our associate members on up to our strategic members, who work across any domain that might be even lightly attached to the geospatial domain. So it's not necessarily just the pure GIS professionals, but it's anyone else who works with location data, from the consumer to the researcher. If you want to know more about OGC, we've got a QR code that you can scan here, or go to ogc.org and look at information on membership. Again, I'll be happy at any time to answer any questions from anyone on OGC. So I'd like now to get on to the main part of our meeting. And so to introduce our initial keynote speaker, I'd like to welcome Mr. Colin Lowe from the Singapore Land Authority. He is the Chief Executive of the Land Authority, with 20 years plus experience in the hospitality industry, corporate business development, real estate, etc. Mr. Lowe and I were chatting earlier today about his experience and how that has changed so many things with respect to in the COVID crisis here and how we're all behaving. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Colin. And Colin, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thanks, Scott. Thanks for the kind introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, friends from all over the world, wherever you're dialing from. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to join you at the opening plenary for the 120th OGC member meeting. As Scott said, my name is Colin, the Chief Executive of the Singapore Land Authority. SLA joined the OGC as a member in 2016, And then since then, we have collaborated with the OGC on numerous occasions, from getting involved in technical conversations and concept development studies, like the Underground Infrastructure Concept Development Study, to co-hosting and co-organizing events like the 110th OGC Technical Committee meeting in 2019, or more recently, the Location Powers Urban Digital Twin Summit held earlier this year. Today, we are happy to take this relationship further with a strategic partnership with OGC. As part of this partnership, SLA looks forward to hosting the OGC member meeting this year and for the next 2 years. For the next few years, the geospatial market in Asia is expected to register a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of almost 16%. There are many exciting and attractive opportunities in the development of this fast-growing industry. We hope that this partnership serves to highlight these opportunities, and we invite industry experts from all over the world to join us and be part of this growth. Over the last 50 years, the convergence of geospatial technology, location-based services, and enterprise IT have changed the way we use geospatial data. The advent of GIS software 5 decades ago marked the beginning of how we visualize information of our physical, social, and economic worlds onto digital maps. Today, geospatial is everywhere. Geospatial and location data and information touches innumerable domains, from disaster management, climate change, transport, retail, real estate, agriculture, health. The use of geospatial technologies is woven into the fabric of our everyday life. From the digital maps that we see on the phones, we use them to navigate, to the food delivery apps that make it so convenient for us, especially now with COVID, to get our food delivered to our doorsteps with just a few taps of the phone. And in recent years, we have already seen many new technologies incorporating geospatial to achieve amazing outcomes. We see the use of autonomous vehicles powered by maps and AI, like the ones that drove the Tokyo Olympic athletes around. We see the emergence of digital twins, like China's digital twin of Shanghai, that covers almost 4,000 square kilometers and will be used to analyze various aspects of the city, from climate change to the effects of population growth. We also see drones leveraging on 3D urban data to facilitate the rapid delivery of AED to cardiac arrest victims. All this is made possible from the geospatial data that power the maps, both 2D and 3D, that these applications depend on. Geospatial data is being collected all the way from space down to our subsurface. And as we look towards the future, new paradigms driven by emerging technologies and market advances will continue to bring even more sources of geospatial data. The new space paradigm is one such area. With advances in technology like rocket launches, small satellites, evolving sensors, and ground infrastructures, data acquired from space continues to increase exponentially. Advances in small satellites, coupled with sensor technologies, have also opened a new world of possibilities for Earth observation, navigation, positioning, and climate and environment monitoring. The miniaturization of satellites has also significantly reduced the cost required to launch them, resulting in the proliferation of satellites launched into space. For example, in the year 2020 alone, over 1,200 satellites were launched, the highest number of satellite launches in a year. That number is projected to keep growing, as well as the petabytes of data collected from Earth observation. Now back on Earth. For many years now, space technologies have also enabled the Global Navigation Satellite System, or in short, GNSS. The GNSS provides positioning, navigation, and timing services on a global scale. It is a key enabler, powering our everyday location-based apps. And more recently, coupled with ground infrastructure, GNSS can be heightened with centimeter accuracy, with precise GNSS. In Singapore, this is done through SLA's Singapore Satellite Positioning Reference Network, or SIRENT. Precise GNSS has immense potential to be leveraged further in applications like surveying, mapping, and operations of autonomous vehicles and robots. These positioning technologies also enables each one of us to become individual sensors. Our smart devices enable each of us to collect and share geospatial data around the world around us. The type of data we are able to collect is also hyper-local in nature, creating a new paradigm that will accelerate a new era of economic, social, and environmental development. Hyper-local data gives new insights into traditionally hard to understand places, from providing detailed last-mile navigation to understanding the population characteristics in a particular community. However, even as we look towards more ways of collecting detailed and granular data above the ground, we must also be aware of the data we have underground. For Singapore, a small and densely populated country, tapping into the underground space to meet the many and growing needs of our urban environment is the next logical step for us. All over the world, as urban populations grow and cities become more complex, the underground space is increasingly being used. This has highlighted a major problem. Often, there is a lack of subsurface utility infrastructure data due to the complexity of ownership of the utilities and the gaps in information sharing for security, competitive, and cultural reasons. It has led to project delays and increased project costs, and more importantly, poses a big safety risk. It is therefore important that we consolidate underground data to manage this risk. The Singapore Underground Data Model Specifications was hence developed and aims to establish a national underground 3D standard for 3D modeling of underground features in Singapore's context. It is an open data model based on OGC's CityGML to provide the guidance to a common definition of 3D infrastructure underground features in Singapore. Thus, this allows interoperability between different data sources. These sources of data acquired from space all the way to the underground is therefore just a few of the many domains we need to address. Compounded with other sources of geospatial data like socio-economic data, health data, ecological data, and even as we expand to include data from our seas, we need to look at modernizing our spatial data infrastructure to meet this ever-growing needs. In the face of the exploding volume of geospatial data collected over different timescales and acquired from the multiple sources, as I have mentioned earlier, and more, the next question is, how can we manage and organize this data across disciplines to be readily consumed and integrated by all users? In the past, we looked to closely architected spatial data infrastructure to share this geospatial data. In Singapore, we have the Singapore National Spatial Data Infrastructure established in 2008, where the NSDI facilitates the sharing of geospatial data across the government by linking our various data hubs and layers together. Historically, the majority of geospatial data was collected, maintained, and distributed by the government. This is no longer the case today. Individuals are right now geospatially empowered to use and collect geospatial data for their own ambitions. Big and small companies are now playing an increasing role, not only in terms of data collection and technology advancement, but also in usage and applications. Geospatial is no longer the sole preserve of the government, but is at every person's fingertips. Therefore, we must now look towards modernizing our spatial data infrastructure so that it becomes a responsive and sustainable framework, and that provides secure yet frictionless access to high-quality geospatial data to the users that need it, where new services and even new products can be developed for the future. And as Singapore continues to aspire to be the smart nation, we should not forget that many of the problems we face today, like the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change, are global issues. I believe that the modernization of spatial data infrastructure globally and regionally would also improve the accessibility of geospatial data across borders, thereby allowing for cross-border solutions to be established to solve shared global problems. However, to reach that point, we must first come together, work together in coming up with the principles, standards, and approach in establishing a common framework for a modernized SDI. And I'm sure that all of us here would agree that open standards are very important in bringing data together. Because without standards, data is just disparate buckets of unlinked, uncoordinated information. But standards are only made possible by bringing people together to have those important and sometimes difficult conversations before we can finally come to a consensus on the right standards and practices to employ. As in all things, people are at the heart of geospatial. And the OGC, as Scott has mentioned, has done a fantastic job of bringing geospatial people together. We are all dedicated to using geospatial to address and solve the complex problems we face now and in the future. The best way we can do that is together. With our continued collaboration and effort, we will be able to face the challenges ahead in our increasingly complex world to create a better world for all. And I wish all of us and all of you a very fruitful meeting ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Colin. Absolutely fantastic presentation. And in fact, you've just highlighted in the last 10, 12 minutes what we have to get done this week in our OGC meetings, this year, and in the coming years. And even further, it's a great example of why Singapore really functions as a living laboratory for so much of the work we want to do in the OGC. And you mentioned a number of the practices you already have in place in Singapore related not only to our standards, but also the types of standards we want to develop. So it's been a wonderful experience working with Singapore over the past many years. And I really appreciate you being able to highlight your local needs that exactly identify our mission. So thank you so much for that. Now, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, Colin noted that OGC and the Singapore Land Authority are going to agree to cooperate even more closely. And this meeting is just the beginning of what we will see as a long and fruitful relationship. Not only have we hosted meetings in Singapore in the past, and we're doing so virtually, but still with very tight ties to Singapore today, we'd like to continue doing this. In the coming years, we'd like to continue to have events in Singapore, bringing people from across the world together in a really wonderful location. We want to be able to take advantage of this living laboratory, as Singapore is, and see these things in action, this work happening in action. And we want to be able to collaborate with the Singapore Land Authority's GeoWorks organization, which is helping to incubate and develop new technologies based in Singapore and the region. So with that, we have an intent to sign now a memorandum of understanding such that Singapore Land Authority and the Open Geospatial Consortium can cooperate and coordinate more closely on these matters. And so I believe we each have our MOU document here. Is there anything you'd like to say about this, Colin, before we get to the signatures?
Scott, you have summarized it well. We are happy to be partner of OGC as well. So press on together then.
Right. So I will take my MOU here.
And likewise.
Make sure I sign. There was a pen here. And now, everyone, just we'd love to show off our new memorandum of understanding between Singapore Land Authority and the Open Geospatial Consortium. It's really exciting to engage in this partnership. Thank you very, very much, Colin.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you.
And Colin, I do not know if you have any time left for questions. My understanding is you have to head on to another meeting quite shortly. But feel free if you want to stick around. If anyone does have, if you have time for a question, if we get any. Great. And I don't see anything coming through on the messages. The platform's a little interesting. Um, Great. So thank you again so much. And I just want to reiterate the value we've had from hosting meetings in Singapore in the past. Really helped bring along a lot of the work we're doing in urban digital twins, smart cities, and such. And as you alluded to or mentioned very specifically, the underground model Singapore has as being a key component of an enhanced underground data model that OGC is working on in collaboration with Singapore and New York City and the UK and a number of other organizations. This international participation is just instrumental for all of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott. Have a good and fruitful meeting ahead, then. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right, and it's waiting to share my screen. Fantastic. Well, next up, we have another wonderful presentation for you, and that is our fireside chat. As you're aware, those of you that have been attending the OGC member meetings now for the last several meetings, we've hosted these somewhat casual but always really informative chats amongst industry experts and Dr. Nadine Alame, our Chief Executive Officer with the OGC. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Simonetta Celli with the European Space Agency, where she's the head of strategy, program, and coordination office in the Directorate of Earth Observation Programs. You may be aware that European Space Agency is a longtime key strategic member in OGC, participating not only very actively in standardization processes across the organization, but also as one of the key contributors to our innovation program with respect to not just underwriting projects, helping us identify projects, but also putting strategic leadership so those projects result in real and important outcomes that we can then continue and expand to others. So with that, I would like to turn over to Nadine. I will stop screen sharing so you can see their faces and enjoy this conversation. Thank you, Nadine. While we wait for a moment, I do want to call to your attention that, oh wait, maybe Nadine's coming back in. Let's see.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, you're wonderful. You're crystal clear now.
Yes, much
All
better.
right.
Thanks, Nadine.
All right. Super. We're back to old technology. So let me know where we are. I'll go with your flow.
Yes, please just proceed with I think with the chat and your introduction. We heard a lot of it. Maybe the last little bit was not so clear.
Yes. Did you hear how excited I am to welcome Simonetta? And I also hope you heard my appreciation for the European Space Agency overall, as Scott had mentioned, for sponsoring the OGC Innovation Program around areas of, Earth observation exploitation and GeoAI, analytics, workflow, containerization. So with all of that happening, I reached out to the new Director General of ESA, Joseph Ashberger, and I asked him who he would recommend for the OGC membership to hear from with respect to ESA's big plans in this area. And I tell you without hesitation, he said Simonetta Celli. Simonetta has been at ESA since 1988 and is currently the head of strategy, program, and coordination office, Directorate of Earth Observation Programs at ESA headquarters in Paris. Her role involves coordinating ESA relations with the European Union, the European Commission, and various other European entities, including MET organizations and international partners, as well as 22 ESA member states. She's also responsible for coordinating the director's office and supporting him on ministerial meetings and high-level international events like the upcoming COP26 UN meetings, as well as coordinating relations with CIOS, GEO, and the Disaster Charter. I think this group will appreciate this little tidbit about Simonetta. She speaks, listen to this, Italian, French, English, Spanish, German. So welcome to OGC, Simonetta. Your bio touches so many of the topics that we deal with on a daily basis at OGC. So I'm very excited again to have you here.
Good morning, Nadine. Good morning, Scott. And good morning, good afternoon to all participants. Thank you for inviting ESA to this event. It's an important event, the OGC meeting, and combined this time with the Singapore Forum. So that's even more important, I would say. Why are we here today? I think we have an extremely long-lasting collaboration, as you mentioned, and Scott also mentioned, with OGC, because ESA is a strategic partner of OGC. We have lots in common. I mean, OGC, it's a problem-solving forum. It's a forum where you discuss about innovation, data integration, access to data, and also standards. And that's all also what we do on the other side in ESA, in building the satellites, but in particular in providing data from our Earth observation satellites, and in actually working together commonly with the international community, also, for example, through CEOs in developing standards. That's why we are here. And I think what's interesting today is to notice that Europe, and with ESA, of course, but with ESA and programs that we develop jointly with the UMETS at the European Meteorological Organization, but also with the Commission, like the Copernicus program with the Sentinels, we have a really big wealth of data. We have today 16 missions in operations, and we have 37 in development. So very big Earth observation program, possibly the biggest right now in the world, with an enormous wealth of data available, free and open data policy, which is, I think, very relevant for this community here, and about 250 terabytes per day of Copernicus data distributed to users, 40 petabytes of data available in our archives. So the need to actually make sure that the geospatial community, like the one you represent here, uses this data at best, and actually that we work together in a collaboration. We have a very strong trend in the market trend in terms of increase, and all the pronostics tell us that about 10-12% increase in the downstream market associated to the use of AO data is the trend worldwide, which means is something that we have to look into. We have to look into the development and the use at best of the data available in support to policies, of course. You mentioned COP26, climate change crisis, but not only the Green Deal in Europe and everything we do in the policy field, but let's not forget also the commercial market and the private sector, which is having an increased role. So that's more or less the scenario in which we operate, and that's why we're very happy to be here and connect again links with this geospatial community that you represent.
Thank you so much. Welcome again to OGC. Bienvenue à l'OGC. These are the two languages I know from all your list of languages up there. So Simonette, let's start with an easy question. Between the context that Colin just said and your words about the European ecosystem, essentially, it seems that so much has happened in the last couple of years. You mentioned the technologies and the market environment, and we have to also, mention the unprecedented flooding disasters that have occurred in Europe over the last summer. And ESA has a new director general as well. So can you comment on how the combination of all of this technology, markets, commercial sector, the disasters in our face, how is that impacting ESA's strategy going forward?
Yes, it's a big question. It has multiple facets, of course. Yeah, we have a new Director General, Joseph Aschbacher, since March, and he was before the Director of Earth Observation. He knows very well this world and the Earth observation world, of course, and he has set up a new plan with a strategic view up to 2035 and calls this plan Agenda 25. He has discussed it and prepared it with member states and in consultation with all stakeholders of ESA. So this plan puts ahead the priorities for the next few years for the European Space Agency, and it involves 5 priorities, in fact. The reinforcement of the relation between ESA and the European Union with the Commission. And in the field of Earth observation, we have a very successful, what we call flagship, which is an infrastructure program called Copernicus. So development of satellites. We have today 8 in operation, Sentinels. The last one was actually built and launched together with NASA, with the support also of UMETSAT and NOAA. And it's very successful. It looks at altimetry. It has has basically the sea level rise trend in terms of objectives. And this successful endeavor will be reinforced in terms of one of the priorities, because we do work and we plan to work even closer with the European Commission, that today has a new setup, a governance, a space regulation and funding for the next few years until 2027 with the multi-annual financial framework. Second priority is commercialization. So we do realize in Europe that there is a very strong increased role of the private sector all over in space, but also in Earth observation, new private initiatives. So in the agency, we also want to support and develop such a private context with what we call commercialization. What does it mean in concrete? It means that the European Space Agency will work more to grant access to venture capital for new initiatives, for new startups associated to both the downstream and also the upstream sector of Earth observation. We will implement programs like the one we have started a few years ago, which is called Incubed, with a PPP sort of joint investment from member states and also the private sector into the Earth observation field. We are developing new concept and validation of technology missions. We call them Scout, and we have just selected and signed the contracts for two, one on hydrology and the other one on the atmosphere sector. We will also validate, let's say, this new space field with a role for ESA, which will be a role in anchor tenancy. So buying data from initiatives, including private initiatives, to complement the data that we have from our satellites. That's the second priority that we will implement in terms of commercialization. And of course, this goes together, as we are 22 member states, Scott mentioned that, with also implementing procedures, which are faster procedures to sign contracts and to implement these initiatives, because you need to support innovation and disruptive innovation and technology development, but you need to do that also fast and with funds. Third priority, maybe less relevant here, but is the one on security, to assess and see what we can do on security in Europe. Then we have a challenge on programs, and we are preparing the next ministerial of visa, which is in 2022, with a whole set of program proposals which are being developed these days in consultation with industry. In the field of Earth observation, we plan a budget of the order of 3 billion to submit to member states next year, with a variety of program proposals involving the development of new research missions. We call them explorers, and also the follow-up of the Sentinels that we started to fund at the last ministerial. And then last but not least, we work on the ESA transformation. So we try to have a more efficient organization to be more compliant with the sustainability. Of course, we will go to COP26 as we do every year as observers at COPs, and we have to comply with the requirements provided by COP, which are in fact the CO2 reduction target compliance. And we do work very hard on that end as well, in the context of the ESA evolution, reducing the CO2 emissions, and in also the wider context of the Green Deal in Europe. So these are priorities, but you mentioned also the disasters. Unfortunately, we saw some really bad flooding in Central Europe, in Germany, in Belgium, in Holland during July. We also saw very big heat waves in Canada. For example, we did see all that with our ESA satellites, not only with the Copernicus one, and we had a lot of damage assessment and also some work on the disaster service in collaboration with the Commission Disaster Service on the flooding in Germany. And we had a look with some of the instruments on board of our satellites, like Sentinel-3, at the land temperature in Canada, the fires which were also there. So disasters are certainly on top of our agenda. We do work in collaboration with the Disaster Charter with 17 space agencies worldwide since over 20 years, and we developed that end very much. And actually, in the proposals we are putting forward for the ministerial, we will reinforce that aspect of having satellites in support of societal challenges, and not only climate, but also management of natural disasters, of course.
Wow, Thank you for going so succinctly, I think, through those priorities, because everyone, I was writing them down. But I heard collaboration Europe and internationally, the private sector, which we have, a third at least of OGC's membership is actually listening to you in terms of a private sector of innovators and entrepreneurs. It's amazing. And then, of course, I think the transformation, which we're all, going through. This is what I said. It's like a combination, modernization, transformation, disruption on so many levels. So as if you didn't have enough, challenges just in the 5 priorities that you listed, but to this audience, for example, what do you think, or what do you see some of the challenges going forward from the perspective of just having so much EO data, and the world also recognizing, the aha moment of, ooh, I can do so much with that data. So what do you see the challenges from your perspective?
I think we have some clear challenges, and then I'd like to make you a couple of examples that give the idea how we operate on these challenges. The challenges for sure today are the ones to integrate, for example, the digital technologies into the Earth observation one. We cannot work anymore using data building satellites as we've done until now. We have big data, big volumes of data. So today we must make sure that, first of all, the users who want and need to use those data can access those data. So we don't take basically we have to take the users to the data somehow, and we have to connect those 2 dimensions. That's a challenge in terms of volumes, in terms of security, in terms of distribution of the data. So we have to integrate more and more the IT technologies into our world, which is the traditional Earth observation world. We work a lot now more and more with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and we do integrate those technologies into our daily work. And that's a challenge because we don't have necessarily the expertise in that field. So we have to recruit, we have to motivate people, we have to connect to that world, and we are developing new initiatives. For example, the Digital Twin Earth initiative in ESA, which is a twin of the Earth. We heard from Singapore, they have a similar initiative there to look into climate change challenges and also to look at hazards. And this would be an integration of data from different sources, from satellite, from ground data, but also the data will be processed with very high-speed computing techniques. We have a collaboration there with ECMWF, so the Center for Medium Weather Forecast, and with EUMETSAT that provides the data lake, so the data source for that. And that digital twin of the Earth will give a new vision of the Earth with a perspective on a specific topic. And it's something where I think that the conjunction between the IT world and the one of geospatial data will come alive, and where for sure a community like this one will have a role to play. Recently, we had 2 very good examples, I think, of the integration, collaboration, use of EO data during the COVID crisis. Very few weeks after the crisis, we initiated a project called Rapid Action for COVID and Earth observation. And this was a joint project we started with the European Commission to define a number of sites in Europe, over 200 sites, and look at environmental, economic, and agriculture indicators over these areas. It means that we were looking, for example, at pollution reduction over major cities in Europe. We were doing that with satellites like Sentinel-5P, which looks at methane and also NO2, because there was a reduction clearly on traffic and industrial activities. We were looking at harbors where the ships were stuck, or airports where the planes were grounded. We were looking at the agriculture sector, where sometimes, for example, in Spain, the strawberry collection had a delay, or the asparagus one in Germany. So indicators which were given also to the whole general public, because these data were and are still available freely via a web interface. Very useful data correlated to economic parameter. For example, we estimated the impact on the reduction of tourism in Venice, just looking at the ships reduction. There were no more ships going from the airport to the mainland. From February to April, 95% reduction of the ships, 400 million estimated reductions in terms of tourism in that area. So these parameters indicators were looked, and now we still continue to work on that in the recovery phase to monitor the recovery phase. Very useful, I think, indicators for everybody. And this collaboration was enlarged then to JAXA and NASA. So we've been working with the space agency in the US and the one in Japan, putting data in common on a voluntary basis to look at similar indicators worldwide. And this, I think, is an effort not just of collaboration, but it's an effort of raising awareness of the potential of the EO data coming from our satellites and from all of us collectively. And a second nice example was what we did recently with Google Earth. There was this initiative of time lapse, basically over 30 years, and data from Landsat sources, the US ones, and data from Copernicus, European sources were put together. Over 24 million, if I'm not wrong, data sets and images were integrated to look at different areas of the world and look at the evolution of over land, over forest, over cities. And that's certainly another example of how you can work collectively to use at best EO data and also raise awareness about the potential of that, and which is not just a scientific potential, it's also potential in terms of commercial and also of collaboration among institutions.
Wow, thank you for those examples. The time lapse is very cool for those who haven't seen it, so definitely check that out. And I appreciate actually you bringing up the indicators and the collective sort of development or validation of those indicators. I think this is our community is trying to do that in our innovation program in a small, I think, disaster pilot, small but very impactful, I hope, disaster pilot, where we're trying to capture those indicators for flooding, for landslides, but also to somehow come up with, you know, maybe blueprints on how do you deal with a flood, or how do you predict a flood, or how do you prepare, especially for the developing world. So linking back to, you know, your initial statement about the collaboration even at the UN level. So it's as you mentioned, there's so much, and sometimes those examples help a lot. So thank you. So we're sitting here. Actually, I'm standing. I don't know about you, Simonetta. We are, you know, you're speaking today in front of this, you know, literally global community, collective problem-solving community. I love that you use the word collective as well. And it's a community of geospatial experts and users who combine the standards and the innovation and try to make an impact, or at least accelerate getting us from the data to decision-ready information in all the challenge areas, and especially the disasters that you mentioned. So what message would you have for them? Or maybe what do you see the next big thing that this community of experts could actually rally around and drive forward to help you and help us all?
I think today we're all struggling with issues like the ones you mentioned, disaster management, not only climate crisis. And I think we're all looking for solutions. So this community can support looking for solutions in that respect. For example, in ESA, we have developed what we call thematic exploitation platforms. So we have developed some dedicated platforms. One is typically on disaster management. One is on Mediterranean, where we do collect process data ready for the users to be used. And this is something which I think is quite innovative, which could be developed for sure worldwide, and it is developed worldwide. And we do have collaborations, for example, with NASA on the development of a platform that we called MAP, that integrates data sources from NASA missions, but also from ESA Earth observation missions. And those platforms, which are somehow tailoring an interaction with a dedicated user community, I mentioned the exploitation platform for disaster, but there are many more, I think are going to be more and more useful to promote the use of data and also to get the data being exploited by the community. We also have what we call the DIAS. So in fact, if you want to access Earth observation data from the Sentinel satellites of the Copernicus family, you can access those via a web interface. You just register and go, and you get it, as I told you, free of charge. But then you have also other dedicated mechanism to get those data, sometimes in a privileged way through a special arrangement that we have with partners, but also through the DIAS, which are commercially developed platforms that are tailored, where you get the data on a commercial basis, but they are more tailored to specific needs and specific services that need to be used. So the development of these type of platforms can be certainly an area where there is a big potential. I think I mentioned also the integration of IT tools with EO, so artificial intelligence, and challenges ahead of the Digital Twin Earth. There is not only the European initiative of Digital Twin Earth. I think this is an initiative that potentially has a much wider scope at international level and not just limited to European collaboration in terms of using data and developing platforms. So I think these are all opportunities coming up, and certainly the opportunities in this field of geospatial combined to the best exploitation of Earth observation data, and of course of ground truth data, is increasing. If you look just in Europe, the European Environment Agency is being using data from ESA satellites for the last 30 years. And today they use this more and more to monitoring the land cover and the quality of the air in Europe. And they integrate ground data with satellite data to do their reports, which are more and more precise. This is something that wasn't even thinkable 20 years ago. And it has a big perspective also in terms of institutional exploitation of our data. So these are just elements of, I think, potential evolution, possibly much more. And I think we are trying to work, of course, to make sure that everybody can, everybody, I mean citizens, but also challenges that we have at European and international level can be met with the use of this data. So we have to make sure the satellites are there and the data are there available for those who will use it.
That's fascinating. I appreciate you sort of went, we've got the data and we're making it available, the fair and open, the free and open data at the beginning, and hitting at all the way down, I was writing it down to dedicated user communities. So you're going the extra step essentially to making sure that this data is usable with the different communities. And
for example, in the private sector, we do have today in ESA what we call a Phi Lab, which is an innovation laboratory, and we host people from companies, startups, but also the academia. We recently hosted a company which is an insurance company of one of the European member states, and this insurance company came just to test and validate if they could assess the damage of a grail on a certain area before they were reimbursing the person that got the damage, if they could do that assessment and validation of the damage using EO data. So these are commercial examples on top of the institutional one of the Environment Agency, but they're real examples.
Exactly. It's interesting that you mentioned the insurance. It's been on my mind for the last couple of days, and how we can collect these use cases, right? The use cases that really, I think, save them a lot of money and probably save us then all a lot of money in accelerating the process just by having access to the data. So we have a couple of minutes left. I will ask you. My last question is always the same for every speaker for the last year or so, and it's really the most personal one. If you were to take a moment, right, and reflect on your career, right, as somebody in this field, as a woman, as a leader, and how you got here to actually lead ESA's strategy, program, and coordination office. Do you have any practical advice that you can give to others? Especially, you mentioned the young generation, right? Young professionals, women and minorities for inspiration in this opening plenary.
If I have an advice, I would say always do what you like. I always love to work in collaboration, travel, speak languages, as you said in the beginning. And I also liked a lot things like environment. I was very much for collaborative projects. I was lucky to go into a field, which is the domain of space, where cooperation is certainly a strong element, where you need to connect those who know, which are the scientists, the technicians, the engineers, with those who need to know, which are the politicians. So with my background, this is what I managed to do for many years, try to connect that world of the technical world and the scientific world to the policy one, try to get the funding, try to set up new projects. But frankly, the advice I would say, try to do what you think you like to do. And I was always lucky in all these years, over 30 years in ESA, to be able to do that. And still today, I think we're in a very challenging situation of trying to shape space for the next few years with a new director general, very interesting new projects and challenges years ahead. And it's still passionate, and I still have the same motivation as I had when I started, but also try to shape your career according what you like best. And I think then you will find the opportunities, and the opportunities will come to you, and people will help you if you're very motivated in that direction. I think studying scientific domain and scientific topics also helps, of course, to be in this field. But you need the integration of the world of diplomats and the world of scientists in this area for sure, and more in the coming future.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's my professional. Yeah, I see the hearts, going up. I like this platform. So do what you like, people. I think it's great. I love that you also mentioned that you're lucky. I think everyone here on the line, we're lucky to be living in days where we can make an impact. I think there are many opportunities, just the challenges that we discussed, that there's space to actually make a change and help. And then, like you mentioned, space, and for us, geospatial, it's not like a little tiny domain. There's so much just within it. And you hit on collaboration, so thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. Please, pass my thanks again to Joseph. I mean, he was very supportive from the beginning. I would also like actually to take this opportunity to thank Cristiano Lopez, because he is the official ESA OGC representative in our strategic member advisory committee, and he's been fantastic with us over the last few years, especially supporting the innovation program. And I want to take the opportunity to welcome Gunther Landgraf, who took over from Cristiano, and he's now one of us. So welcome, Gunther. Thank you, Cristiano, and thank you so much, Simonetta, for being here and for being so accessible and for openly sharing the good, bad, and the optimism, I think, and the power that we can have on this world, the impact. Thank you.
Thank you again, Nadine. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, OGC, for inviting ESA, and looking forward to the next occasion. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simonetta and Nadine. That was absolutely a wonderful conversation. And once again, the fireside chat has inspired me to have even twice the normal energy for the rest of the week, because this makes me realize I love what I do, so it makes it great.
And good luck for the meeting this week.
We do
Ciao,
have time
bye-bye.
for one question, if you're game for one question, Simonetta.
Yeah.
We did get one that came in, and we have time for that. We had a question: are there any other potential applications of digital twin of the Earth other than climate change and disaster risk assessment that you are looking at?
Yes, there are many, many more. And actually, we only started with these two as a trial, and we're just starting now. We're even looking in ESA at a digital twin of the universe, just to give you an idea. So a different perspective over the universe. And we're looking at different digital twins. So as you know, digital twin is a concept of looking at digital twin of the Earth, having a perspective and some information and some dedicated data over a type of topic. So you can have many multiple digital twins. And as I I said, we're even looking at the digital twin of the universe these days.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Simonetta. And thanks again for your time today. It's been really wonderful having you here today. And again, inspiring for the week. This is great.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Well, Nadine, since you're live in person, do you want to continue with the CEO update while I got you here and while your mic is working?
Why not? I love this, Scott. I mean, do what you like.
All right.
I like this a lot. So I repeat it again. I don't know how you do it, Scott. 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. It's the same energy, and I love it. Your energy is inspiring, and so yes. Every meeting, every member meeting, honestly, is an opportunity for me to think about the vision and the value of OGC. And every time it becomes, again, honestly, clearer and clearer to me. And I really hope to you as well, and to anybody who's attending, who reads our blogs or subscribes to the OGC newsletter, that we're actually, just by the conversation with Simonetta or Colin earlier, we are way, way, way more than a standards development organization. Every time I feel, and yes, I'm using feel, that OGC truly is a community, a collective, per Simonetta, collective problem-solving community, and a passionate community. And I feel that we're passionate about using our expertise. You want to call it in geospatial or spatial or location. We're passionate about using that expertise to make location information, as you mentioned, Scott, fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Because again, guess what? You check the news, whether we just heard from Simonetta, the floods in Europe or China, or the wildfires in the US or in Turkey. When time is of the essence and lives are at stake, today, sadly, in 2021, information that we need for decision making is actually not easily findable, and it's not easily accessible, and it's not interoperable, and it is reusable to some extent. I call it with a few hacks here and there. So this OGC community is then passionate or dedicated. We want to change this. We want to change this together once and for all. And I think by working together, we really come to agree on how we integrate the data, the EO data, the sensor data, the traditional data, underground data we heard earlier. So how do we integrate all this data, and how do we interoperate the systems? And out of working together, we produce these standards, these internationally ratified open consensus standards, out of just being passionate and doing it together. And then we provide them freely to anyone and everyone, not just us. That's the open, really open part of OGC that I like. And when we get together, by the way, we also demonstrate the possible in scenario-driven activities. I mentioned the disaster pilot as an example, and that's the innovation program in just a couple of words, demonstrating the possible as innovations come and go, as technologies come and go, as new markets even come and go, and players come and go. And this community has done that for 25 plus years. And with the explosion of data and technology, back to Colin's speech earlier, no wonder why this community is actually thriving. It's really, really buzzing, which is great. So I hope you'll be able, thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope you'll be able to at least sample some of the sessions during this very packed week in collaboration with the Singapore Geospatial Week. I am willing to bet that in every session you will be hearing about modernizing a standard, maybe the OGC APIs. You will be hearing about transforming a domain. We heard insurance, experimenting with new use cases and Earth observation or weather. I hope you'll hear maybe about disrupting a market, or maybe disrupting government policies or workflows, or entire notions like spatial data infrastructures. If you listen carefully, I really hope you also begin to appreciate, just like me, how this community, the OGC community, um, your work has actually now grown to support a much, much wider scope of users and domains and applications. Where we used to be this niche community, we're now supporting really the whole world, and a world that's actually hungry for exactly what you offer and what you like, right? So think about it. I think we're all actually evolving, transforming, disrupting with what we're doing and how we're doing it. So, in the spirit of evolution, and in the midst of all of this work, we have also been thinking about rebranding at OGC. So now Jonathan Fath, our marketing director, has sworn us all to secrecy. So I cannot say any more than to ask you to keep your eyes open in the next month or so for a new OGC logo and more. And with that, Scott, and without getting myself into too much trouble, I will pass it back to you. And I want to actually take the opportunity to thank again everybody who's listening in, joining us today and the whole week. I want to thank SLA again for an amazing collaboration. You are so great to work with. So thank you for hosting us, for co-hosting us. I want to take this opportunity to also thank never enough our strategic and principal members of the consortium for guiding us on this evolution journey. And thank you, thank you to all the OGC staff for everything that you do, including supporting this meeting at the wildest hours of the day and the night. So back to you, Scott. And thanks again, everybody.
Thanks so much, Nadine. Excellent message. That was really wonderful. And yeah, it's been a great collaboration. And I'm thrilled to have all the staff helping us so much. It's our staff are just amazing. And all of you in attendance, thanks so much. And I'm loving watching the chats and all the little icons float up when people thumbs up and hearts and whatever. That's kind of cool. So excellent. Great. All right. Trevor Taylor is going to talk to us a bit about welcoming our new members and a few other minor details. So Trevor, I'm going to get you up the most important thing of all these new people.
All right. Welcome, everybody. At the heart of the collaboration, the innovation and standards, the cross-domain government, private sector, academia, research, and other partners to support the collective problem solving are you, our members. So welcome new and upgraded members. Next slide, please, Scott. So first, excellent news. We have a brand new strategic member, which is United Kingdom Hydrographic Office, who are helping the global community with investments in marine spatial data infrastructure, as well as some other areas. So congratulations to the UKHO, and thank you for your vote of confidence by becoming a strategic member. Next slide. We got a brand new principal member as well, Cubic. This is in the defense and intelligence market area. Once again, this is just more indications that all of the messages and all of the content you've heard from all of the speakers this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whatever time it is increased dedication to the changing and evolving OGC mission. Next slide. For technical, thank you very much, Mantech, Huawei, Spirent, and interestingly, In-Q-Tel. We heard a little bit earlier today about the role of venture capitalists or venture capital firms in the location industry. This is what In-Q-Tel does. Next slide, please. And a whole bunch of associate and university members all around the world in the new space domain, in smart cities, in disasters, academia, and the startup communities. This is all excellent. Next slide, please. And that's it for me. Thanks to all of the new members. We're continuing to grow even in tough times, and we look forward to more collective problem solving and some interesting innovations. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Trevor. It's really impressive again to see the diversity of our new members as well. And some of these folks come from other organizations where they were past members and have brought their organizations along with them. And they're just doing really fantastic work. I want to also thank UK Hydrographic Office for upgrading to strategic membership, because we've had so much success lately in the marine domain. It's really exciting to see work in the marine space being reflected in the strategy of OGC as well. And so that'd be a really important membership. Very quickly, before we get on to more exciting stuff, let me go through a little bit of logistics stuff, because after all, there is still the whole business of operating the rest of the sessions. So those of you who are OGC members, you were waiting for this reminder, you finally get it. Please do find the appropriate project in the portal and register your attendance. Those of you who've logged in from the Singapore Geospatial Festival, you don't have to worry about this, but our members, please do record your attendance. Hopefully I caught all of you who've been in here during the session today. And you'll need to do that for every session you attend, even if it's on AirMeet. Please do that for us. So details this week is the main meeting week. We had some sessions last week. The closing plenary will be next week on Monday, and it will be more of a North America, European-centric time. The planning committee is Tuesday of next week. Once again, of course, we are virtual, and we are mixing platforms this time. So we're all on AirMeet right now. Those sessions that we're organizing jointly with the Singapore Geospatial Festival will be on AirMeet. Many of you online right now who are speakers should have received an invite to be a speaker in AirMeet. If you did not receive such an invite and you are chairing or speaking in a session, I'll show you on the next slide that's in light blue, do let me know, or do let our wonderful event manager, Sterling Joseph Phillips, know, and we will make sure to take care of that for you. And then the main OGC sessions will be on GoToMeeting like we've done forever and ever and ever, and hopefully that's all pretty clear to everyone. The agenda that you see online has timings. Those timings are Eastern Daylight Time. Those of you in Singapore, all you have to do is just flip the AM to a PM and you'll see your own time zone. The rest of us have to do the math in our head. But all these light blue sessions, those are the ones that are jointly organized. Again, will be mostly hosted on AirMeet, and then you see the remaining sessions. Those of you who are new to the OGC, those sessions that are in the pinkish color that are domain working groups, anyone is welcome to attend those sessions. So please do feel free to join those. The yellow, bright yellow ones, the Standards Working Group, SWGs, you do need to opt in to the Standards Working Group before you can attend that session. If you have any questions about that, again, contact me and I'll be happy to give you more on that. Just to highlight so many special sessions this week, these are the ones that are linked to the Singapore Geospatial Festival. We have a Beyond SDI coming up after this session. Tomorrow, quite a number of sessions. We start with today's innovation, tomorrow's technology, plus future directions, and a fused 2-hour session to look at what we're doing with respect to insertion of technology and looking forward. We have a special startup session with some startup companies pitching their clever ideas. And then we have a session on metadata, catalogs, and records. Wednesday, the developer track, as we've been doing each Wednesday now for quite a number of meetings. That's an all-day or all session length track for those who are developing against a number of standards. And you can go to the link on the OGC meeting page to find more on that. Mobility Summit preview. We want to hold a mobility summit once we're back together physical again. So this is to gather some ideas. And the Med-Ocean Domain Working Group talking about some general topics on meteorology and oceanography. Thursday, indoor mapping, ad hoc 2 sessions back to back to talk about state of standards, state of art in indoor mapping. A marine special session where we'll hear more from the UK Hydrographic Office, the Health Domain Working Group, and Citizen Science Domain Working Groups both talk about issues that should be of general interest to all of you. And finally, the Asia Forum will be meeting for 4 hours on Friday. So that's why we've moved the plenary to the following week so that we can give time for our members in the Asia Pacific region to have some focus. We have a special guest at our closing plenary. Jana is going to join us as the new Secretary Director at GEO, has a great expertise in international relations and comes to GEO from NOAA. So I look forward to hearing Jana's presentation in the closing plenary next Monday. All of you, again, who are logging into this meeting, if you go to meet.ogc.org, you will see a calendar of all the sessions that are happening each day. If you don't recall, you can select items that you want to attend and then create an iCal invite that will map it directly to your calendar system. You will also see to the right of those you have interest in attend a little yellow spark that shows those to go to GoToMeeting, or whether it's on AirMeet, which you should all register for. So those things that say AirMeet, you just have to click your link to go to AirMeet and find the session and join it. When you're in GoToMeeting, please do add your affiliation to your name. I have to pitch this to everyone. Just put it in parentheses behind your name, please. We'd appreciate that. You don't have to do that in AirMeet right now. A little bit more TC, Technical Committee business. So all of you folks from the Singapore Geospatial Festival, our Technical Committee and OGC run our Domain and Standards Working Groups who meet all this week. For them, please vote. All of you voting members, vote, 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 vote. There are several outstanding votes on the portal right now. Some of them start ending late next week. So please do vote and advance this very important work in OGC. And the saddest piece of news I have to give, December, virtual again. We really tried. We really, really, really wanted to have it on the West Coast of the United States. Unfortunately, COVID is not playing well with us at all. And so we will be virtual yet one more time. But to honor those folks that wanted to host us, we will host the meeting in Pacific time. Details for this meeting will be emerging just after the meeting we're in now. We've already advanced quite a bit on planning schedule and such. So I'll be in touch with a lot more details in coming days. And then we will try to get back to our 3-meeting cycle that was requested by the technical committee next year. If we're all physical, we can make it all work really well. But also keep in mind, we're thinking about perhaps having a virtual plenary day to try to keep at least the pace of documents and presentations to the technical committee up to date. And so I'll be reaching out to all of you who are working on the standards, those of you who are working on new initiatives, to see if we can arrange something in that manner. I particularly think about towards the end of our test bed every year, when we normally have our December meeting. Most of those engineering reports are made available to you as members for review and for voting. And we do not want to slow up the approval and publication of those important reports. And so we do want to organize some kind of virtual plenary day to get you briefed on all those documents so that you can vote on those and know what we're up to. So with that, that's all of our information on the member meeting for the next member meeting, as well as the plans for next year. And I'd like to let us all end up with the most fascinating stuff we're going to hear all day. And that is Dr. Ingo Zimonis to talk to us about what he's doing as a Chief Technical Information Officer and looking after the innovation program. So Ingo, off to you. And I'll let you share your screen unless you want me to share. And Ingo, you need to unmute, please.
That helps, right? Thank you very much, Scott. Yeah, let me experience this new tool. It allows me to select my PDF file to present here. So let me try to do so. Give me one attempt, and if I do fail, then I'm happy for you to drive through the slides. So, but let me do this, open that here, and then it should be coming up. It does. Pretty good. So welcome, everyone. This is an overview of the OGC innovation side, the R&D work we do at OGC. And with all respect to what Nadine said, but I missed one piece. She said we are exploring the possibilities. Well, I like to extend this a little bit. We are exploring the impossibilities as well to figure out what eventually will be possible. So that is the great and beauty of the innovation side, right? We are really experimenting with all the challenges out there, even though we might not know the solution up front, and just develop it over sometimes a couple of years in the various OGC innovation activities. Today, I just want to give you a very, very brief overview of what we do and what will be presented during the member meeting. So we do have a ton of presentations. Scott already mentioned testbed 17 underway. The testbeds usually provide their final results and all the findings at the December meeting. We will continue doing so, but there are lots of aspects that are tightly integrated with activities we have on the standardization side. And as we are working to more seamlessly integrate what we do on the innovation side with what we do on the integration on the standardization side, we already present quite a number of aspects here at the September meeting to allow a more intensive discussion between the two programs. From the testbed side, what we see is, I haven't counted them, it's probably 12 or so presentations. We address the new moving features API in the moving features SWIG, the aviation API in the joint UXS and aviation DWIG. We talk about the preliminary findings of open API code generators that will be presented in the architecture DWIG. GeoPose SWIG, we have lots of use cases for GeoPose in testbed 17, so these will be presented and discussed. We have use cases that have been explored in the context of features and geometries JSON or JSON-FG, as it is sometimes referred to. The Earth observation exploitation DWIG needs to vote on a recommended release of the EO Cloud platform concept development study report. We have features in geometry JSON in the developer workshop. We have routes for aviation and in JSON-FG. So this is again JSON-FG related, but this is the routing part, which is used in aviation. This is presented in the routes SWIG. We have site activities, so compliance testing. We have this presented in the site steering committee as well in the OGC API processes. And then we do have one more presentation about multi-source spatial-temporal data cube for large-scale geospatial analysis, which continues our discussion we have started on data cubes earlier this year with the Data Cube workshop. You all know data cubes is a very important task in testbed 17, where we explore that the data cube principles and concepts seem to be continuously evolving, and we have now a much better understanding of what a data cube actually is and how it could be used in future. The disaster pilot, we have heard about it several times already today. We will have a number of presentations in the EDM DWIG, environment and disaster management. We will get an update on the whole disaster pilot 2021. We call it 2021, which is already an indication that we plan to continue the work into 2022. And as it looks like, we are going beyond. So the idea is really to have the disaster pilot as an ongoing initiative where each year we will add or we will emphasize on specific aspects within the umbrella of disasters and disasters management. In the geosemantics DWIG, we will look at JSON LD linked data and structured data. That is one task that we're currently looking at in the disaster pilot. The health DWIG will receive an update on the current and future health focused OGC initiatives and vote on the recommended release of the health SDI concept development study report. And all of this was conducted as part of the disaster pilot. And then we do have one more presentation, chaining key components of flood response from data preparation to decision making. So you have heard already from the Dean before, landslides and flooding are two topics that we currently address in the disaster pilot. Then we do have the Federated Marine SDI demonstration pilot that was just kicked off with the request for information. So this is less information on the presentations, but a request from our side. If you use, provide, or access any of the IHO S100 series of specifications, please respond to the request of information. This is very important to us because we need to understand who actually deals with these types of data. And here, specifically, we are looking into marine protected areas, which is S122. If you do have any questions, please feel free to talk to Roland Phillips, who will as well present the results of the interoperable simulation and gaming sprint, the ISG Year 2 sprint, together with Leonard Daly from the Kronos Group. He will present in the CDB, not CBD, SWIG, sorry for that typo, and as part of the ISG DWAG. Then we have Sebele. Sebele is an Horizon 2020 R&D program conducted under the umbrella of the framework program here in Europe. It's a 3 years project, and there are a number of presentations that are all related somewhat to agriculture in this case. But Rob Atkinson will look more on the conceptual modeling side. So in the O&M SWIG, he will present on the different O&M implementations to a conceptual model. So how does everything link together? That is the key question, right? In O&M, we have an abstract specifications, we have different implementations, we have profiles with WaterML, for example, time series ML, and they all need to link together somehow. And that's what we are working on as part of the OIM revision and of the definition server, and Rob will present on these topics. The conceptual modeling subgroup already met last, last week. I'm not quite sure when it was, but last week. We had very good discussions at that meeting, and the recording is available. So if you want to figure out what Rob presented in terms of the relationship between these conceptual models, JSON schema and JSON LD context, please download the recording. It's available from the OGC portal, and review that session. And then Niels will present on the more domain-oriented aspects, on the domain research and development side as part of the agriculture DWIG meeting. Then we have eShape, develop operational Earth observation services, where we look into, well, how do platforms actually really work in practice? We have so many different data platforms that we are dealing with. And as part of eShape, Marie-Françoise Boisdreau is looking at these different platforms from the perspective, well, how can we make it happen that you really have a smooth user experience? And eShape in this context is using quite a number of results from other OGC innovation initiatives, like the Cloud Concept Development Study, the Earth Observation Exploitation Platform Common Architecture, that's what EOAPCA stands for, from the work we did with applications to the data, which is data application processing in API, DARPA, and for sure the testbed activities. And here we do have a number of presentations that will be outside of the member meeting. One is part of an online workshop, the Sentinel Data Access Benchmarking Methodology Technical Checkpoint, that will take place September 23rd. And then we've already heard about it in the discussions earlier this morning, the ESA-FI week, where we will present the European Exploitation Platform ecosystem. That's coming out of our research activities in eShape. And then we do have a couple of call for sponsors currently out. One is the Integrated Digital Built Environment Pilot, IDBE. If you want to learn more about it, here is the URL where you find the full call. The idea is to really explore where we stand on the geospatial side and the BIM side, and how can we bring these two closer together. And in this context, we do have quite a number of presentations given by Josh. One is in the ENU DWIG, next steps in building and building energy mapping and analysis, one about smart cities and urban digital twins, which is presented in 3DIM. And then we do have the underground work, which we have heard about this morning already. Here we will see the refinements to NUA and MUDDI, the conceptual logical models for the underground situations that's presented in the MUDDI SWIG. Couple of other aspects coming out of another research project we are conducting under the umbrella of the European Commission that is called the GOE3, where OGC is involved. And here we are exploring quite a number of digital built environment aspects. And we see here a couple of first results. The project just kicked off last year, October, so it's about a year old. And this project is so interesting because we use quite a number of the new APIs in the context of 3D city information. So we are exploring the API features, coverages, learning how to use the 3D geometries with CityJSON. So everything that was newly or is currently newly created and implemented and standardized is explored in this very practical project, which gives us lots of experiences from real-world scenarios. So if you want to learn more about that, GOE3, hit the website or please talk to Niels Hempelmann, who is leading our involvement from the OGC side in that project. We have the Climate Change Services 2022 pilot. That call for sponsors is open as well. The main idea really is to get to more interoperability among climate change services. And here's the URL to the pilot. That call is still out for a bit. And if you want to hear more about it, there are a couple of opportunities. And one already took place. That was a lightning talk Niels gave at the European Meteorological Society, where he talked about the FAIR principles for climate service information systems. And we're very happy that we managed to get two 2-hour sessions. So it's quite substantial events at the UNFCCC African Climate Week and the UNFCCC COP26. Both of them will focus on the FAIR climate change services, and they will take place later this month for the African UN FCCC, and for COP26, that's in about mid-November. Then we do have testbed 18 for sure. The call for sponsors is out. We are planning currently the various tasks that we want to address. Here's a little bit the testbed process. We are at the moment at the concept development phase, or stage within the preparation phase. The call for sponsors is out, and we are now working together with all interested parties. Currently, we don't have any strong commitments. It's still the exploration phase right now, but we are working with our potential sponsors stepwise to develop the call for participation. Then we form our team with inviting OGC members to participate in the actual implementation phase of the testbed. And then if we look at the timeline for testbed 18, we see that at the moment we just had our first sponsor telephone conference last week. We are going to have a second one end of September 28th. If you're interested in sponsoring testbed 18, please let me know or talk to any other OGC staff member, and we will bring you into that call. The idea is here not so much to define exactly what you want to do, but to learn what other sponsors are interested in, what potential synergetic effects we can see. And then we will stepwise work with you, and then call for sponsors. The call for participation development starts in October, and we plan to release the call for participation in early December. So stay tuned for the new CFP for testbed 18. And that is about it. Thank you very much. That was a very, very short overview. But the slides are available, and if you're interested in any of these initiatives, please feel free to talk to me or any of the other OGC staff members. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ingo. I greatly appreciate this overview again. And for those of you who are attending from the Geospatial Festival, you'll see a number of links were dropped into the conversation for these projects. You can just go to the OGC website under Innovation and find information about all of these. I encourage you to look into these projects and get involved. We're doing some really cool work here. And like Ingo said, this is just a drop in the bucket of all of these projects. So thank you again, Ingo. And everyone, thank you very much for your time today, my friends. This has been a great opening plenary. We're off to the races now with the remainder of this meeting. So we've got a 30-minute break now, and you'll see on the OGC calendar, as well as the Singapore Geospatial Festival calendar and the AirMeet, when the next session starts. So 30 minutes from now, the next block of sessions, including a Beyond SDI one open to everyone in the Geospatial Festival. When you go to the lobby of AirMeet, please do take some time to network or visit the exhibitors and just see what everyone's up to. So with that, everyone, thanks again. I look forward to talking to everyone all throughout this week. Have a wonderful day, night, morning, whatever it might be. Bye all.